So I want to start out by just reminding you that I'm here in Ukraine as a missionary on a volunteer visa. That means I can't work. I'm not allowed to work legally, either externally or internally in the country. I can't work remotely or locally. But I depend on your donations in order to pay my bills. I've got my rent due. I've got utilities due. I also have food that I have to buy regularly, as anyone does, and other expenses as a missionary. So I do depend on your donations. Those donations need to come from a heart that's been forgiven by God. I want you to think about what God has done to forgive you and what He's done to build you up and strengthen you and protect you and bless you in your life. And I want you to remember that that came to you through Christ and through someone preaching the gospel. And so I want you to think about offering that to someone else. That means through me. And donate to my ministry in the links down below in the description. And I will be praying to God to bless you even further, because you are stepping up and showing this gratitude that Jesus repeatedly demands in the parables that He gives. So I want you to really take this seriously, because Jesus saw it fit to put many parables in there about gratitude of having been forgiven. Now on with the lesson. So now let's get into some details here of some other issues that are related. There are two ways of governing your life. What does that have to do with it? Well, exercising your mind. You're governing your life by exercising your mind in the midst of the occasion, right? But what are you doing? Are you governing your life? Because if you are lacking persuasion, you're retaining governing of your life, according to Jacob, aka James. So in Jacob 1:6, aka James, the book is really called Jacob. So we're changing it back to Jacob, to what it should be. So in Jacob 1:6, it says, "But let him ask," this is King James Version, "but let him ask in faith, not wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven by the wind and tossed." Okay? Now, that's not what it says in the Greek. That's a gross misrepresentation of what the Greek says. I'm going to read to you what it says in the Greek from the rooted word precise English translation. It says, "Moreover, he must implore in faith, depending on his own governance in nothing. For the one depending on his own governance has already resembled a violent agitation of the sea, being driven by the wind, then being thrown flat on the ground hastily." Now, you hear that this is about the governance of your life. It's a thorough discrimination of things. That's what the word means that is translated waver or doubt. Now, you could, by extrapolation, say that maybe it means that. But we don't do extrapolations when we translate. We take what the word means. And if it makes sense in context of the verse, the sentence, then that stays. And it may change our theology. Because when you extrapolate, you're getting farther from what was said. And if your theology is based on that and it's different than what it would be if you had kept the word the way it was, then your theology is off. And that's what we find repeatedly in the translations. Nevertheless, what we have here is that he must implore in faith. This word is persuasion. The word faith means persuasion. Depending on his own governance in nothing. Okay? There's a distinction between two things going on here. One is depending on God's governance of your life and depending on your own governance. And that happens by exercising a thorough discrimination of everything. When you do a thorough discrimination of everything, you're sitting in judgment on those things. And you're not exercising faith in your life. The word humility means to arrange yourself humbly under. So when you humbly place yourself under God, you're arranging yourself in an orderly manner, humbly under God. That's the full meaning of that. So this is probably the most important core Christian character trait that you need. Because God does not give grace to anyone who is not that way.